one of the biggest struggles for students is knowing where they can turn, who they can go to, what their options are, and what they can really do to kind of, again, maximize their learning experience so that they can focus on the learning and the education as opposed to trying to work past or work with their disability.
I've certainly seen many students, close friends, residents struggle with barriers on campus, whether they be physical barriers or more invisible ones. On the physical ones, I've had close friends looking for a gender-neutral washroom, for example, and having to go to an entire different building to access one. I've had residents suffering from depression, anxiety, even the stress of just contacting a professor to ask for a request, a special request, can be quite stressful, and it's quite a barrier.
When I was a student here at Queen's, when I first started my undergrad, I was so incredibly nervous to go and talk to the professor and to say, "Hi, my name is Michael McNeely and I have a disability." And I remember all the times that I've met my professors, and I remember the wide range of reactions that I got. Some of them were very defensive, most of them were quite understanding, and some of them were very friendly, and I felt that I could trust them immediately. You never know how somebody is going to respond when you disclose personal information, such as your disability. And I remember, and I still feel to this day, some awkwardness and some hesitation about whether or not people will accept me as a person with a disability, or more importantly, as a person, and how much of my disability they're going to let influence our interactions.
And I think for a lot of students, kind of the struggle is we're really optimistic, and even if you're registered with disability services, there's the hope that you're not going to have to use your accommodations and you're not going to have that conversation with your professor. Because a lot of us like to be idealists and hope that we're going to be able to make it through the whole semester and maybe avoid that potentially awkward conversation, to have that sit-down conversation with your professor. So I think a lot of students kind of put it off, hoping that they're not going to have to use it, and unfortunately that can result in a little bit of maybe tension or misunderstanding if you then go to talk to a professor who's been under the impression that you're a healthy student all semester long, and then suddenly you're coming to them requiring different accommodations. So I have a pain disorder, which I've had since I was 16. I think the biggest difficulty I have with it is explaining it or kind of bringing that across when it comes to talking with professors or other educators, because on any given day I look like this, I look perfectly healthy, and it's really hard to kind of grasp that it's really unpredictable, which I think makes it the most challenging, because I can be fine in class one day and then the next day not be able to get out of bed, and it's hard for a lot of people to understand that it can change that rapidly and be that unpredictable. Different disabilities or chronic illness can be very isolating or limiting and can lead to different issues like anxiety, particularly around pain or stress or stressful times, or even depression if you don't have the proper supports. I think one common thread in a lot of that is stress, and when you have deadlines approaching and exams coming up, although your illness may be unpredictable, you're definitely or usually at a higher risk of a flare-up or some sort of incident in that period. So maybe having that understanding or having that conversation with a professor that while it may sound convenient to you if a student has a flare-up during an exam period or around a due date, that it is actually probably more likely to happen then than any other time of the year because of the different stresses that you're putting on your body.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, there's the disability services, there's equity services, there's human resources. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to say, "I don't know a lot about cerebral palsy, I don't know a lot about deafness, I don't know a lot about blindness." And most of all, don't be afraid to ask that student or that faculty member if you have any questions or concerns about how they're leading their lives with a disability. You don't need to apologize for asking. You can just say, "I have a question for you. It might be a little bit personal, but I'm just curious, and it will help me do my job better if I know exactly what kinds of accommodations or what I can do to help you better." And I would honestly hope that people are not defensive or angry for saying that, because I think we need to open the dialogue here between people who have disabilities and the others who can help them get the accommodations that they need here at the faculty.